What is non-duality? People ask this question a lot. And it's such an interesting question because non-duality is simple. It's duality that's complicated. In fact, non-duality is that which cannot be simpler. So that doesn't mean it's easy to explain, because language is inherently dualistic. Every word has a specific meaning by negating other possible meanings. So language is inherently dualistic. And in fact, language is a big part of how the mind creates the illusion of duality, right? So in the simple cognition represented by the verbal sentence, I see a pot. This is the classic example given in the tradition. I see a pot implies there's two or three separate things there. There's a seer, denoted by the word I, and there's a thing seen, denoted by the word pot, and then there's an act of seeing that links them, denoted by the word seeing, right, or see. But this is just a linguistic convention. When you look in direct experience, you don't find three things. You just find one thing, which is the cognition that we are calling pot, whether you're seeing it or feeling it or hearing it, right? It's a vibration within consciousness that you label in a particular way. And you can imagine a seer, right? It's easy enough to conjure a self into existence, a separate self, by simply imagining yourself as the seer of the pot or whatever it is. Just like you can imagine yourself as the thinker of the thoughts. But the thinker is not found in direct experience, is it? There's simply thought, a particular vibration within consciousness. Just like there's visual imagery, which is really just light, which is a particular vibration within consciousness. So you can, if you like, notice a subtle distinction between consciousness itself, the field of awareness, and that which vibrates within it, right? In fact, there is no such distinction, right? And yet there is, in terms of noticing a field of awareness within which all these vibrations arise and subside, right? But the vibrations are inseparable from that within which they arise and subside. So let's make this simpler, right? It's, if you're having a thought, just notice that the thought spontaneously arises and then at some point dissolves again, giving way to another thought or to silence. But there's no actual thinker of the thought present in direct experience, right? In fact, if you look at it honestly, you'll notice that you don't even know how to make a thought. How would you do that, right? You don't decide what to think before you think it, because if you decide what to think, you're already thinking it. So just look at it. You see thoughts spontaneously arise. There's no doer. There's no thinker of the thought, actually. That's just a cognitive illusion. You can imagine yourself as the thinker of the thought, and then it seems real. So if you hear a sound, you can imagine yourself as the hearer of the sound, and that's how this illusion of the separate self is generated. And it has to be maintained moment to moment. It actually takes up a lot of energy. If you're not maintaining the illusion of separate self, well, you have a lot more energy at your disposal, actually. So if you hear something, right, if you hear the sound of the bell, well, that's just a vibration within consciousness. There's no hearer separate from the sound. There's no active hearing separate from the sound. There's just that vibration within consciousness. So, what are the implications of this? Well, if you actually explore it carefully, in depth, you find that all divisions are mind created. They're mental constructs. So non-duality is nothing but the whole of reality as you experience it minus your mental divisions. Okay, so the primary mental division that most of us experience is between a division between me, what I call me, and what I call not me, right? I imagine a separation or division. I imagine a category me, and then that obviously necessitates a category not me, everything else, right? But if you look at it in direct experience, you cannot find this boundary that supposedly exists between you and everything else. As soon as you try to look at it, it somehow slips away, even though ordinarily it seems so real. And ordinarily it seems so real because we live in a mind world. We live in a world of mental constructs in which mind-created divisions seem real. But if you look at them carefully, in direct experience, prior to thought, no such divisions can be found. Right? So what I call body is just a vibration within consciousness, right? Because body is nothing other than sensation. And sensation, like sound or light, is a vibration within consciousness. So it's really very, 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 very simple. Simply remove all mind-created divisions, and you automatically experience wholeness, oneness, unity, no separation, no separate self. Seamless unity. And this is really important to make this distinction. We're not talking about the feeling that you have when you believe it's all one, right? The feeling you have that when you believe it's all one is itself a product of a mental construct, right? Because even though everything is one, if you're accessing that through a belief, then it's not the real experience. It's actually just the experience of that belief, if that makes sense. Reality is whatever doesn't go away when you stop believing in it. So the true unity consciousness is the unity consciousness you experience when you stop believing in separation, when you stop believing in the separate self. That's much, much, much subtler. It's much easier to believe the thought, it's all one, or some similar thought, and feel good. I like the feeling I have when I believe that thought, right? But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the experience that you can have if you remove all mental constructs, even just temporarily, even just for a moment. Remove the belief in the separate self. Remove the belief in the mental construct of me versus not me. And in a moment, there's seamless unity. There's wholeness. It's actually quite easy to access this awareness if you are ready, if you have this aptitude to allow the falling away of these mental constructs. Then it happens in a moment, and you taste non-duality directly. And then the challenge becomes abiding in non-duality. That's the hard part. That's the challenging part. But the more interested you get in this experience, or this mode of experiencing, it should be called, right? The more it happens. And it's not difficult to get interested in it because it's quite a beautiful experience. It's quite a fascinating experience or mode of experiencing. Hard to put into words, because as soon as we try to put it into words, again, it's a thought form. And the point here is not to believe any thought form. Right? But give it a try. Go for a walk or do anything. And invite yourself to experience that all you perceive, everything you perceive, is spontaneously arising phenomena within the field of consciousness. And the field of consciousness is one. There's no division to be found anywhere in it. You can look, you don't find it. You might find apparent divisions that dissolve as soon as you look closer. So there's just seamless unity. There's just all these phenomena arising and subsiding within the total field of awareness. And you are the total field, and you are the arising and subsiding. Don't try to get it with your mind. There's no point. Don't try to attain anything. Rather, seek to remove these mind-created divisions. Seek to see through them. And let it be simple. It is so, so, so simple. And when you're experiencing in this mode, then you really do feel that nothing is any more you than anything else. That everything is equally you, or everything is equally not you, depending on how you want to look at it, right? But the sound of my voice right now is no less you than anything else you're experiencing. Isn't it the case, just look at it for yourself, isn't it the case that the sound of my voice is equally present within consciousness as the feeling of your body? So if both phenomena are equally present within consciousness as a vibration of your consciousness, how is one more you than the other? That's just a mental fabrication, right? Let that go. Everything you're perceiving right now is arising within that which you are. Don't think about it, just notice it. There's nothing separate. There's no person named Harish out there talking to you. There's just a vibration within your consciousness that you might call by that name. And if your child or pet walks through the room, it's a vibration of your own consciousness, a beloved vibration of your own consciousness. Perhaps sometimes a challenging vibration of your own consciousness. But there's no other. There's nothing out there. It's all in here. There's nowhere else for it to be. Everything arising as a direct expression of your consciousness, moment to moment. And everything that subsides dissolves within and into the consciousness that you are. Really simple. Any questions? In the Ishvara Pratibhijna Karikas, beautiful text of this non-dual tantric tradition called the Stanzas on the Recognition of the Divine, it's said that the mode of non-dual experience flows even in the presence of thoughts and thought constructs. That's very true. It's very obviously true. Just notice the difference between what it's like to believe a thought and not. If you believe a thought, then you enter into the thought world and you perceive reality from the perspective of that thought, which is necessarily limited and might involve, often does involve, separation and division. And if you don't believe the thought, it's just a vibration within consciousness. How could it possibly impede this non-dual awareness? It can't. No thought can impede non-dual awareness unless it's believed. And even then, non-duality doesn't cease to be. It just doesn't appear to be from the perspective of seeing within that thought. Right? When you believe a thought, you're entering into it and seeing from inside it. And that's why things look different. It's that simple. Om.